My name is Lisa Ventura, and I'm the founder of Cybersecurity Unity, which is a community organisation that has been put together to help unite the cybersecurity industry, not just in the UK, but globally as well. So I have, ever since I can remember, I've lived, breathed, and loved anything to do with writing or storytelling and so on. So I knew that that's what I ultimately wanted to do. And my original and first career choice was to go into journalism. But I decided against this because doing that meant a move to London, because believe it or not, in the early 90s, when I was doing my A levels and then subsequently went on to studying for university, it meant being in London. There was no other way around it. It's hard to imagine, but there wasn't email. Then it was only just starting to come into the forefront. We weren't connected in the way that we are now. And to work on any of the mainstream magazines or even newspapers or publications meant a move to being in London. And as much as I enjoy visiting London, to live there or even on the outskirts was just, no, I can't do that. So instead of going into journalism, I actually decided to go into a career in PR and marketing, but predominantly PR. And that was how I chanced upon getting into the entertainment industry, by attending a seminar by a gentleman called Paul Vaughan, who ran an agency called PVA Management Limited. And that agency looked after the interests of people like Chris Tarrant, John Ketley, the weatherman, Ed Doolan and Les Ross, that were quite prolific radio broadcasters in the West Midlands, amongst others. And I talked to Paul at the end of the seminar, and it went from there. I remember doing a CV for him on a makeshift typewriter at the time, believe it or not, and I got a job working at the agency. Within a few months, it became apparent that I had quite the knack for liaising with a lot of the presenters like Chris and so on. And Paul, who was my boss, was frequently out of the office. He was a school governor, he was a magistrate, and so on. And so I would get requests for Chris, and because we didn't all have mobile phones even at that point, Paul wasn't easy to get hold of. I'd just pick up the phone to Chris and go, "This has come in, it's room 101, or it's tonight, whichever McDonald, and do you want to do it?" And I found that I had a knack for negotiating the fees and so on for Chris. And so I started working with him a lot more readily, and that was how I transitioned. And I did a lot of his PR, a lot of his marketing as Chris Tarrant, the brand, and also worked with him closely when he got onto Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which I can remember arriving in the office at the time on A4 paper, and it was called Cash Mountain. That was its working title, and I got to see that go all over the world in different formats. It was beating EastEnders in the ratings at the time. It was a really, really fun and interesting thing to do. So yeah, did that for quite a few years, and then I made my way into cybersecurity after that in 2009. I transitioned into cyber in 2009 from all those years of working with Chris Tarrant in the entertainment industry, because I joined a cybersecurity software development company that my ex-husband had founded, and he was very high up as an ethical hacker penetration tester, and he did a lot of work with a lot of the big government companies and contracts and so on, and a lot of which he couldn't obviously tell me a lot about. But what he could tell me was, even then, before I made that transition, I was always fascinated with it and about the psychology of the hacker and what drives them to do it, and why they do it, and it was just really fascinating for me. So when I took the leap to join his software development company, and that was when I really got involved in cyber and learned a lot very quickly from him and from others in the industry as well. I found that in terms of the transferable skills, you need to be very inquisitive. I mean, for me, having those skills of organization, of project management, of all those writing skills, marketing skills, and so on, stood us in really good stead for all the work that we did to promote the company. And I was there for 3 years. And after 16 years, when he decided that he didn't want to be in the anymore, I'll be honest, I was actually a bit more like, oh, so I've got to come away from this now and I have to start all over again. But I knew that I wanted to stay in cyber, so I did indeed do just that. And I went on to do some work with BT for a product that they had called BT Assure Cyber, which is very similar to the software products that we had in my ex-husband's software development company. And I then did a lot of work with other organizations as well to start training their staff to be a lot more cyber aware. So I very much focused on that whole cybersecurity awareness training piece. And the one thing I really began to hate seeing, and I still hate seeing to this day, is that phrase of your users are the weakest link. It's like, no, they're not. They're your biggest asset to securing your organization. If you educate them and you train them to be able to spot things before they happen, and also not to have that fear of reporting something. So we're all busy. We inadvertently, click on that link by mistake and we think, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have done that. Just to have that thing of not having that fear of reporting it and being able to go, look, put my hands up, I did this, it was a mistake and I was busy, before ransomware or something like that spreads across your system. So that's my specialism, is really being able to train those the organization staff to be a lot more cyber aware, to think before they click on something. And if there's just something, even if it just looks really legitimate, but they have a gut feeling of this doesn't look right, to just ask or just run it past somebody else and say, what do you think about this? Just having that moment of, I'm not sure, I'm going to just take a step back and just check this before I do anything with it. Well, I spotted a gap a few years ago. I couldn't sort of really see that there was an entity to bring the industry together. And I tried to do that through the traditional trade association model, if you like, with members. And I founded the UK Cybersecurity Association a couple of years ago. But after a while, I got to around about to July, August last year, and I was actually just thinking, this isn't really what I had in mind. I'd seemed to be on call after call after call. I wasn't getting much done in the way of sort of focused work, or really developing a lot of those key projects and things that I wanted to do, particularly with supporting women in cybersecurity, of helping those in cyber with their mental health, and helping those that are neurodiverse into careers in cyber and so on. So I thought, I need a rethink, and I actually decided that I would close the association down, which I did, put it off a whole bit, and I went off to do some other work. So I did some work with the UK Cybersecurity Council and so on. But I kept coming back in my mind to this idea of this community, of highlighting all the great work. I mean, even the great work that CREST is doing, all the other great work that's going on within the industry, and bringing it together, under one roof, and really trying to unite the industry and saying, look, we've got CREST here that is doing this piece of amazing work in these certifications. We've got the cyber resilience centres doing this amazing work. We've got the clusters doing this amazing work, and having it all under the one roof, to be able to say, this is everything that's going on within cybersecurity in the UK. But also what I plan for it as well is to get everybody together from different organizations and say, look, what are the threats? What's going on? What are the key challenges? How can we as an industry try to make things better? How can we as an industry even try to collaborate better to solve some of those problems? We're not going to do all of it. We're never going to get one step ahead of the hackers. That's never going to happen. But we can try to make a bit of a difference by collaborating more. And that's the vision that I have for Cybersecurity Unity. So I really do feel imposter syndrome, and I always have those things in the back of my mind of, oh my goodness, I shouldn't be here in cyber, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be speaking up. And it sometimes gets quite sort of prevalent, and there are times that I don't put my head up above the parapet or get involved in events, even doing something like this with you now prior to a lot of the work I did to try and manage the feelings of imposter syndrome, I would really struggle with. Even now, I can say I've still got some of those feelings in my head. And I started going out and talking to some other people, and I took with a chap called Nat Schooler and a life coach called Kim Adal, and we came up with the concept of Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, because we recognised that it was quite a prevalent problem, not just within cyber, but within tech and other industries. And that's what led us to found the Awareness Day. And for us, it was really about focusing on those key subjects, if you like, around it, about the people that suffer from it, and opening it up to having those conversations to say that, imposter syndrome is real. It can be debilitating at times, but here are some things that can help. I mean, for me, I think even before this, just having that bit of time before a call or before a meeting or before whatever it is, where I think, oh, I shouldn't be here in the industry, I shouldn't be doing this, just having that bit of time to just, to reflect and think, no, I do have a lot to contribute. I can bring a lot to the table, and I do have, a voice in the industry, and just some general things as well that also help with my mental health. Of things like taking that time out. Journaling is really helpful for me as well in managing my imposter syndrome. So writing those feelings down, but also then challenging those feelings, saying, well, I feel like this, but what's the positive side of that? So I can't say that I'll never get over it. And one of the big things that came out of the Awareness Day, both this year and last year, is that it isn't something you ever just get over, or you don't wake up and think, that's it, I'm cured of imposter syndrome, I don't have it anymore. It's more about managing it rather than being sort of cured from it, so to speak. And we're looking forward to the next Awareness Day, which will be on the 13th of April next year. I was having a lot of conversations with other women within the industry, and it became really clear to me that I wasn't the only one that had what I call that non-linear journey into cyber. There were a lot of other people and women out there that had also done the same. They'd come from a very different industry and made that transition into cyber, and it was that I wanted to highlight and give a voice to those women that had made those journeys, but also inspire the next generation to perhaps read some of these accounts and think, goodness, that could be me. I could make that transition. I might not be in the cybersecurity industry now, but I can use my skills, and I do have transferable skills, and I can make that jump into cybersecurity. So that was the idea behind the book. There have been 2 volumes out, and I do plan another volume. So volume 3 hopefully will be out for next year for International Women's Day, and it is there to showcase those really non-linear journeys, those the challenges, the struggles, the successes, and really give a voice to those women. And for example, I had a chef that's made the transition into cybersecurity as one of them. There have been some really interesting things that have come out from that book, and I've had a lot of really good feedback about it. And I would it's not been possible this year for a variety of reasons, but I would love to make this a yearly anthology and really give a voice to those women that have made those journeys into cyber from different industries, and also just talk about the challenges and how they did it to inspire others and the next generation to do the same. I myself was diagnosed as autistic in 2018, and so that led me onto a huge sort of learning curve about myself. And when I got that diagnosis, so much made sense. And I think that the biggest advice that I would give is that cybersecurity is really, really welcoming to those that are neurodivergent. I've had nothing but support from lots of different people in lots of different organizations. And I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is, don't be afraid to ask for what you need. So, I mean, for example, for me, I can't cope very well if I have literally back to back to back to back calls. And so whatever I do, I make sure that I have that bit of downtime in between things, to make sure that I can just sort of decompress and focus on other things, rather than have those back to back calls. And even if I have to travel out for meetings or go to conferences and events, I put in that sort of downtime afterwards, because it's very much a sensory overload. I've just done DTX in the last couple of weeks. And it was 2 days of sort of constant noise and lights and people to talk to and so on. And it took quite a toll on me. So I booked a couple of days to go to Worthing, to the seaside, to decompress. So I think that's the biggest advice a piece of advice I can give you is, don't be afraid to speak up and say, I need this to help me be successful in my role, whatever that may be. That was just a couple of examples of things that help me, and every person that's neurodivergent is different, and they may have different needs. So just don't be afraid to ask to put those things in place, because it's there to help you be successful in your role. And everybody within the cybersecurity community is really welcoming. So don't be afraid to ask questions and talk to us. We're here to help. So I've just been doing some work with the UK Cybersecurity Council on their career pathways, and that would be a really good source for anybody that's looking to consider a career in cyber, and who may not necessarily know what area they would like to get in, because of course there's so many different areas, different specialisms and so on. So I would definitely recommend getting onto the Cybersecurity Council website to look at the different pathways, and also looking as well at the different certifications and things that were involved for different areas. CREST, of course, has a lot of that, and getting involved as well in different communities within cyber. And in terms of books and so on, I can really recommend Dr. Jessica Barker's book, Confident Cybersecurity, that again talks about a lot of those career pathways and how to transition and the kind of skills needed. So there is a lot out there, and we're all, say, here in the community to help. So please do get in touch.